guys and girls, it's Blackjack with 396 Guitars. We've got the Vivi guitar back on the bench today. We're actually repairing the nut slot on it. The D string nut slot is cut way too deep, and the string was actually banging on the first fret. Budget guitars, you never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to find. I'm going to show you how to fix that today. It entails using some different powders. They're bone powder. There's a different way to do it, and I'm going to explain that and describe as we go along. But it's going to be a little bit different angle. I'm going to shoot you down there. Let's get to work, and we'll get this girl fixed up. This is a pretty quick procedure. Zoom in, get as close as we can. So what we're looking at is right here. Low E, A, and this is the D slot. And the string, when they cut it, the slots in these, it actually is, you can even see it with your eye. It goes almost down to where it's touching the fretboard. And I noticed right away when I was trying to tune it up that it was banging on these frets up here. So I took it off, got a good look at it. First I put a feeler gauge in there and realized, well, that one is just almost touching that first fret. No good. So what we do is you get this is the bone powder. It comes in black or kind of an off-white, and you can use, there is a way to do this with baking soda and really, really thin CA glue. In a pinch, you can do that, but I have the powder, and this is how I repair them. This is a little tiny spoon. I don't know if the camera's catching that. But you dip down in there, you drop some right into the slot, and then we're going to get some really thin, super fast drying CA glue, and you put just a little drop into that bone powder, and within 10 seconds it's rock hard. And then you can clean it up and go to filing it and get it to the right level. So that's the repair, today's object lesson. I'm going to pause really quickly. The CA glue has all these little syringes and stuff in it, but you have to keep it in the freezer. So I'm going to pause real quick, go grab it out of the freezer, and we'll get right to work on this thing. Stand by. Okay, so I went and got the CA glue. Ultra thin, super fast. This stuff is like water, even thinner than water. One little drop and boom, it sets off almost instantly. Now, what we want to do first is get in there. I go through this exercise all the time when I'm looking for, because I'm still getting used to my new shop here. I don't know where all my tools are right off the bat every single time. So, we're in the movie. It looks relatively clear. You take an X-Acto knife and ever so carefully, you want to just kind of divot it out and give the powder something to stick into when you drop the glue on it. And it doesn't take much. Put my bionic eyes on. I hope I'm not going to be filming the back of my head like I always do. And all you want to do is just dig at it slightly, just to make some rough marks in it. And it gives the powder something to fall into and adhere to. And that's really all it takes. Now, the tricky part is to get the powder in there just so. You only need a little bit. All you're doing is filling up the cavity in the bottom. A little tiny spoon. Drop it in the hole. right in the nut slot. Try not to have it on top. Try just to have it fill up. And tap it a little bit. Anywhere you don't want it to be, brush it away slightly. Because if the CA glue gets on that, it's going to adhere. And that looks pretty good. And that's all it took. Just one little tiny scoop of that powder gets in the nut slot. And then the tricky part is working with this stuff is so tricky because it is just a tiny little syringe type tube that goes on the end of that bottle. And the minute you plop it in there, that's it. It'll set off within seconds. And while that's setting off, you have to pay attention to the bottle because it's super freezing cold inside and it's warm out here, or much warmer than that. That was in the freezer. And if you don't vent it, it will continue to wick out the top and then it'll be all over the bottle. And believe me, you don't want to get this stuff on your fingers. It's going to be a trip to the emergency room. Let's see if I can avoid that. So I've got some paper towels standing by right here. The cap off. Put the syringe on. Now, this is meticulous. And you can watch it coming down the end of the tube. You don't have to squeeze it. That's it. It already put too much. That's how fast it happens. Two drops went down over there where I don't need them. But it did land on the bone powder and it will set up instantly. You'll notice that as soon as I set it down, I relieved the pressure in the bottle and it stopped wicking. That's how fast that stuff whipped through that little syringe. I didn't even squeeze the bottle. All I did was tip it and it comes down and then all of a sudden it comes right out. So you got to be super careful when you're working with this stuff, because if any little bit gets on your fingers while it's still wet, wipe it off. Don't stick your fingers together. You're going to go to the emergency room. This is like run-of-the-mill super glue that we know, where we can buy any insert name brand that you use or are aware of, but it's on steroids. This stuff is just unbelievable. And that little bit of CA glue that I put in there will be rock hard within seconds. Let me just get a toothpick and see where. Oh yeah, it's already hard as a rock. It will break the toothpick before it gives. So I'm going to still give it 10 minutes because you can see that it looks wet, but it's not. It's just, it discolors the powder instantly as soon as it touches it, and it bonds all those little tiny microns of bone powder together and turns it into basically solid bone again, so that you can file it down and get your string height on your first fret action correct. So I'm going to pause really quickly. I'm going to let that set off for about 10 minutes, and then when we come back, we're going to mark it and file it down. So stand by. Okay, so we're back. The gauge of string that goes in that slot, the D slot, is 26. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to get that right. File 26. Beautiful. Not the slot file. I'm going to leave the tape in there a little bit longer because I'm going to be filing this slightly. Now I'm going to get it close, and until I'm ready to string this guitar up. We're going to leave it like probably a little taller than it should be until we get to the point where we restring the guitar. Because I won't be able to check the first nut action until we get it strung up, and that's going to be another video or another installment. So sorry for my bald head. And just like that, I have a pencil mark down on the bottom that the camera can't see. I'm just getting it close. And you can see all that bone material, that bone powder is coming out, and it's rock hard. That will be a forever repair on this guitar. It will never, ever deteriorate on its own unless you get on it and grind it. Now, just like any nut, they can go down, over time, decades and many, 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 many years of playing. They're going to wear down. For the most part, it's a permanent fix, and I like that. I'm gonna roll with that just because until I get ready to restring it, which is not going to be today. I have hardware to put on. I just wanted to show the exercise of how we repair a nut slot if it's too low. And this one was definitely too low, and it came that way from the factory. It was a big surprise, $100 guitar with a free amp, and refer to the other videos. Let's put your headphones on. And this should be good to go. There's no real science to cutting nut slots. You have to measure your first nut action. That's how I was taught to do. When you're putting a new nut in, that's a little bit different. You want to try to go off of the one that you took out and make a line that coincides with the radius of the neck. We're going to do one of those in an upcoming tutorial on the Explorer, the Hard Luck Kings Explorer. That guitar is done and going back to the customer soon, but we are going to get it back when it's time to put in the nut. And we're going to start with a fresh nut, a Graphtec fresh nut to put in there. We're going to knock the old one out, get that one in there, and go to cutting the nut slots and measuring as we go. It's tricky because you have to string the guitar up, and on a guitar that's already completed anyway, string the guitar up, get it set. First you mark it, and then you start at a baseline, cut them down, but we'll show you how to do that when we get there. That's it for today's tutorial on how to use bone powder and super ultra thin CA glue. It's some pretty interesting stuff. I was taught that in a pinch, if you get you're at a gig or you're trying to repair a guitar really quickly, you can use baking powder or baking soda, I should say, and the CA glue. But you still have to have the CA glue, and it's a quick fix. That is not as permanent as using the bone powder, but super cool. Hope you enjoyed it. If you dig what I'm doing, like, subscribe, give me comments. I read them all and I get back to you. So we're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This is Blackjack with 396 Guitars. We'd love to work on your guitars. Anytime you want to call me, I'm here.